what we did yesterday basically is we started to do the bowing action to connect your upper and lower body, but we didn't really work on the lower body. That's what we're going to work on today. But we worked a lot on getting the connection in the arms into your spine, and then did different applications and stuff that utilized that. What's different when you integrate your legs is you get a lot more power, because you're basically then getting a complete connection through your entire body, so all the parts are working in unison to generate the power you have. Also, it's what allows you to actually absorb someone else's power really efficiently. If you look, I mean, a good example of this, in Chen Menching's 13 chapters, just as an example, he talks about two different ways you neutralize force. One is by turning your waist and basically deflecting it. The other is by, it's like, if you look at the drawing, it's like this. And it's like a dimpled in sphere. Well, that's absorbing. You actually are not deflecting, you're actually taking it straight in. Well, the key to doing that is integrating your legs, your arms, and your torso as through bend the bow. That's how you actually do that. If you do it with a static spine, you can do it to some degree, but you don't have nearly as much discharging power, and you have a much smaller capacity to absolutely absorb. So we're going to do stuff today to try to get your legs hooked up better. So if there's any questions about what we did yesterday, I'd be glad to try to clarify it.
When we're doing the pushing drill over here, and you're talking about the power was actually coming from the straightening of the spine, does that start at the spine, or is it coming from the leg? Where does that motion sort of originate from?
Well, what we were doing yesterday, we really were doing it just through the spine. When you really do it completely, it'll come from the bottom of your feet and the top of your head. So it'll be through your whole body at once. Okay? Any other questions? No? Going once? Okay. So I want to do something that's kind of like what we did with the arms to start out. So if someone wants to come up here, and when you do this exercise, I suggest you do it with somebody more or less your same kind of body size. Because if no, I can do it with you, Don. It's just the other way around. It's not very fair. So I want you to go ahead and lie down on your back. And what I'm going to do is kind of like what we did with the arms, except for I'm going to do it with the legs. Because what we're trying to get is you're trying to get your pelvis not only to move and tuck under, like your tailbone tucking under, but you're also trying to get your pelvis to open away from your sacrum. So it's more like, just as a second, if you look at your pelvis kind of as a basin, and okay, these are the sockets, right? Out here. I'm not just trying to get movement like this. I'm trying to get a movement like this. And it's really important to get that lateral opening away from your sacrum and coccyx. That's actually the major motion. This motion of the pelvis is actually not really the motion you want to have. What you want to have is you want to have this happening, and then you want to have your tailbone and your sacrum going forward, independent of your pelvis. So it's not really a pelvic tuck. Your pelvis does go forward a little bit, but it's more this opening, which then frees the sacrum and tailbone from the pelvis that you're really trying to get. Because then you can do fancy things with your root. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, Donna's going to relax. I'm going to take her leg. Usually the easiest way to do this is kind of under the knee. And then stretch out a little bit. At first I'm just going to kind of go fairly linear. If you watch, as she starts getting a little more tuned, her whole spine is lengthening as I'm stretching her out. And then I'm going to start actually kind of going in a little more with it also.
In towards the center?
Yeah. Well, and also compressing slightly as I'm coming. I'm not just stretching out and releasing. I'm actually also pushing in a little bit. Okay, now that's helpful in terms of starting to get the connection into her back, but it's not really opening up the joint between the coccyx, sacrum, and pelvis. To do that, what I need to do is I also need to do a twist in the soft tissue, not in the bone.
Are you lengthening and doing the twist?
Yes.
Are you lengthening, twisting, and pushing it a little?
I'm not really pushing right now. I'm just releasing it. And it's real interesting because if I just do this linear, I don't get the motion in the pelvis and the sacrum. I get motion that connects up into the spine, but it doesn't. Oh, your leg grew. So again, here I'm just doing the kind of linear lengthening out, just trying to get like the psoas and different muscles to release. And then I'm going to do the twisting with it. Like I said sort of jokingly yesterday, yesterday we did the easy part, now we're doing the hard part. Because it's a lot harder to connect your legs well to your spine. Because most people just don't have that much sensitivity in their lower body. Okay, now your legs are back to normal. What I want to do now is go back and using that kind of loose openness now that you kind of got in your sacrum and coccyx and pelvis, I want to go back to thinking about, okay, now what I really want to do is I want to have that connection kind of like I did in my shoulders and stuff as I store the energy into my spine. But now what I really want to do is I want my legs to become like my arms. That they're lengthened out from my spine and connected. So that as I articulate my lower spine forward, it's really going from my spine to the bottom of my feet. Just like with your hands and spine, it was going from your spine out into the palm of your hand. So now the trick here is then your upper body can become a lot looser because the power isn't really just coming from your spine and arms, it's coming from your legs, which is really where your strength is in your body. It's by far the strongest part. Your spine is like the next strongest, and your arms, are, relatively speaking, are rather weak, even if you're like a big, heavy weightlifter. So I want to have you go with a partner, if someone wants to come up here, Michael, and do what we did initially, where Michael's going to push on me. And now I really want you to concentrate on getting the lower body to connect. Go ahead and give me more power. You see how solid that is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you,
It's like pushing against the floor.
yeah, that's the idea. I mean, if you're thinking about it in terms of, okay, I want to integrate my power. I want to basically make the person push against the floor. Because that's where, if you're lined up well enough that they're pushing against the floor, it's pretty hard to move it. So part of what this does is it takes your body and the mechanics of your body and optimizes getting the other person's strength to go directly into the ground. So go ahead and take a partner and practice with the pushing and try to really concentrate on what's happening from the Ming Men down into your feet. And you really want to have a sense of the pressure that's coming in ends up pushing on your feet. If you look here for a second, I'm just going to use Michael as an example here. Okay, getting the shoulders open is really important because before he didn't have them open as much, and it was basically, then what happens when Richard pushes on him, the force goes into his shoulders instead of going into his spine. You want the force to go into your spine because how do you get force from your upper body down into your lower body? That's what your spine does. Your spine basically supports all the weight of your upper body. So this is where you want it to go. You don't want it to go like up here, because if it's up here, it'll stick, and you'll have to use a lot of local strength to control it. So you want to get it into your spine. Then there's a tendency, and Michael now has this pretty good, to get little imbalances in the bow. And what that does is it basically kind of creates spots where things hold, and then it diminishes a little bit the capacity of your spine to transfer the strength downward. The final thing, which is hard to get, is as the sacrum releases, it drops more. So now he's in a position where actually he can absorb quite a bit of strength from the opponent. And it's not in the sense that it's so much like, I mean, there's a sense and a sensation like you're absorbing it, but ultimately it pushes into the ground. Because you wouldn't want to use your spine really as a storage. You want to use it as a transfer. And it's the transfer that allows you, if you get it lined up right, then when you transfer, their force goes into the ground. Now, an interesting aspect of this, if someone comes up here, like Jim, trade people for a second. If Jim pushes on my arm, and let's say he pushes at an odd angle, then it's really just a question of me realigning to get it to go into my spine. You can push up. No, if you push up on me. This doesn't seem like this is a very optimal position to put power into my spine, but if I adjust it right, his strength goes into the ground. It can really be done through any angle of motion in your body. It's a matter of just getting the right adjustments. But that's the kind of core mechanism.
What's the adjustment if you have your hand up? How did you adjust? You have your hand up here, your shoulders extend.
Yeah, and you're pushing this way.
And I'm going up.
Yeah.
How did you adjust?
I did actually a little deal here in my hips slightly and kind of changed the angle of my sacrum a little bit so the strength continued to go into the ground. So then, like if your hand's up high and I'm pushing on you, it's hard to resist it, even though it seems like you should be able to, right? Because I'm actually not at a very good mechanical angle here. I'm actually at a pretty bad one. But I'm able to really utilize that connection all the way into the ground. So I'm getting the strength of my whole body into that pull down rather than it just being my arm. So I try to do it with my arm. It's not going to work. So I have to be able to use my whole body. So this is what we're trying to get to. How do you get that all connected so that you have that sense of movement that comes from your whole integrated body? So if you go back to the very beginning, we talked about kind of moving your body through space. It's really a little more difficult than that. That's a very simplified version of thinking of moving your whole body or using whole body power. The real key to using whole body power is making your body this really efficient conduit of force, whether it's force coming from your body and going out, or it's force coming from your opponent and going in.
So to cultivate this, the alignments of this, would it, besides doing just the third Qigong exercise, would it be worth attempting to do the standing in this bowed posture? Because I just noticed just doing it for a couple of minutes there was...
Yeah.
Because otherwise, to get the kinesthetic reliability to sort out those little breaks along the spine, it seems like you just have to practice that a lot.
You need to have a baseline. You need to have the baseline. Yeah. And then once you have the baseline, then it expands from there. I mean, if you look at in like Taiji forms, if you're doing your Taiji form at a good level, you're doing this all the time. Because part of doing the form is like thinking about, okay, if I'm doing this particular application and I'm doing it in my form and I'm trying to learn how to maximize the power, whether it's coming in or going out, or going up or going down, how do I do that? Well, this is a big part of how you do that, because if you don't do this, you will have a big part of your body that's not engaged in transferring the power. So as an example of this, let's spin around and we'll do some people flying at the wall. You just happen to be standing there, Jim.
Standing in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay, basically, go ahead and, get strong somewhere. Okay. Yesterday, I was basically, when I was pushing people, I really wasn't utilizing the lower bow. I was really just using my spine. Okay, now I'm going to use my legs also. So I'm going to take the strength of Jim down into the ground and then release it. Stronger. Quite a bit stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm using the strongest part of my body now.
Yep.
So this is what you want to do. This allows you to use the strength of your legs in a really efficient manner. And even if you're not as strong, you actually can have a lot of power doing this. It's very, works pretty well. So if anybody else wants to kind of feel the difference, I'd be glad to do it. And then I'll have you work on it again like we did yesterday.
Is that push or?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So you can't even. You see how efficiently that takes your power down? I mean, you're John Strong and he's pushing hard. Yeah. And it really makes it a really effective conduit. And if you notice, I'm not really tired doing this because, but I'm actually staying relaxed while I do it. See, Jim's trying to tell us.
Where are we pushing from?
Yeah, just push
anywhere.
I tried to push him back.
I'll try.
No corner.
Okay, see how if you push, Suzanne? See how it's going? You feel how it goes into my feet?
Yeah.
Instead of being like in my spine, which is what I was doing before, it's now in my feet. Okay, so let's do what we did before yesterday. Get a couple pairs of people and go ahead and practice this a little bit. Let me show something here, because maybe I haven't been probably as clear as I can about this. Someone wants to get pushed. Somebody? Anybody? You. Okay. Richard. When I discharge and I'm using the bow that really connects all the way down to the floor, when I discharge, I'm pulling from my feet down and I'm pulling from my byway up. That's what releases the bow. No, step on a split. So basically, functionally, the speed at which the push comes out is as fast as I can actually make that pull. And if you look at how a bow works, that's how a bow pulls on a bowstring. It does it from the two ends. So the analogy is actually quite accurate. Yeah. So it's not like I'm going, okay, I'm trying to like sequentially or something manipulate everything up my spine. That's way too slow. It's all at once, and I pull from here and I simultaneously pull down. And that's what straightens it and releases it. You pushed yourself off.
I went back.
Yeah, yeah. Try it again. But really, really think of, as you release the bow, you still want to be driving forward.
Yeah.
Nope, you pushed yourself back. I'm just going to put my hand on your back. So you, yeah.
Right?
That was a good one.
That was better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It wasn't that you were holding it.
No, no, just, you know, it's real easy to throw yourself back when you push.
Now let's see, it kind of came up.
Like Jim just did. He went back. Yeah.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to.
A little better. Gotta really. It's got a fair amount of juice.
You coach me how to do it.
That's pretty good.
That was good.
Yeah.
Because I can feel it. But I'm just getting it in my back leg.
Yeah.
But that's probably the way it's going to be if you have this stance.
Right.
But it's probably better to do.
It's actually, even if you're in a forward bow stance, you want to have it in both legs.
Yeah.
You,
Tricky.
yeah.
How do you get it in the front leg?
It should be like this.
Let's see if I can explain this. Okay.
I think I have it more in the front leg now.
Okay.
It's loaded, so everything's connected.
You have to get your
Yeah, when you're pushing on these.
coccyx to push into your front foot. There you go. There you have both legs.
Yeah, yeah, much stronger. Thank
Yeah.
you.
The arm is just a connection. There's nothing from the arms. So it's more like that.
Just explodes up, right?
It really straightens. Yeah, it's not that I'm.
Feel it here.
And the thing is, you see, the stronger, if you look at the analogy, the stronger my spine is, it's the equivalent of having the difference between a 20-pound bow, a 50-pound bow, a 90-pound bow, because bows come in different strengths. And if you're strong through your legs and your spine, it's like having a much stronger bow. Well, a 90-pound bow, if I pull it back this much, has more power than a 20-pound bow pulled back this far. That's why as you get stronger and more integrated in this, you don't bow as big because you don't need to. So if I'm doing this, if you look at my spine carefully when Jim pushes on me, I'm not bowing that much. I am, but I'm not bowing a real lot.
But when you push, it feels like it continues through. I mean, I don't have, my impression is I start to accelerate rapidly.
You do.
And continue. It's like, it's like
That's
the
why the
force
wall is
still
there.
on.
No, the wall is, that's,
Let's say you don't go too far.
yeah. Yeah. But I think that's a very important thing to understand because I don't have to move my spine in a really radical bowing, and in fact, it's probably not as good to do because it's not as efficient. It makes it a lot slower. Now, as an example of this, if I'm doing what I would call a very yin type push, where I'm really using more kind of the fluid mechanics of my body and stuff, I might do a bigger bow. It's going to be slower though. It's more like being picked up by a wave than it is being shot out of a cannon. Or as when Toxing Ying used to do it to me, I referred to it as like running into a freight train. It's like, it didn't give, it just like smashed you. But if I do a soft push, like Jim, and I'm letting the kind of, just the fluids in my body pushing, and the momentum. I'm doing a bigger bow. Because paramount here, rather than taking his power down to the floor, the thing that I'm really trying to do is never engage his power at all. What I want to do is I want to absorb his strength in, so he's falling into me, and then catch his change of momentum. So try doing that. And again, you're still doing the mechanics of the bowing, but the difference is you're not taking the person's strength into the ground. Rather, you're actually never engaging their strength.
That's the flow.
That's a yin push as opposed to a yang push.
Okay.
You're caught.
Yeah.
Is that fluffier?
You're working in too much, yeah.
Yeah, the timing of this is tricky because what you have to do is you have to time it so that, see how when John came at me, I'm just kind of letting him fall.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to do that, but I want to get underneath it.
Okay.
So it's before he can catch himself again.
That's
Yeah,
Suck him in.
he goes like this, he rebounds, and I catch him at the top of his rebound.
So are you doing the SU?
Yes.
Time was a lot.
Yeah.
Now, what you got to do, Donna, is when Jim pushes, you have to get him to float. No, that's really important because that then when he rebounds, it's real easy to push him. And if you don't get him to kind of float or fall, you don't get that kind of rebound, which is when you actually release the push.
All right.
So as you let them come in, you bow yourself, so to
Yes.
speak, as opposed to their energy bow.
Right, yeah. Well, interesting, this is let me talk about this because this is an interesting thing. I'll use Jim. John asked me, he says, well, you bow, but you don't take their strength, and that's right. But their strength actually still governs how I bow. I don't just kind of bow in a vacuum. I have to feel them, but what I do is I bow so I'm ahead of them slightly so their strength never actually gets to me. And this is an important thing. It's like, hard to read.
Hard to read.
So that's an important Important point. Now you broke.
Yeah.
You didn't let my strength kind of move your bow. There you go. So it's really getting the timing. If I exaggerate this slightly, I'm going to fall into Jim, and then when I come back up, that's when he wants to be releasing his push. And if you get really good at it, when you release your push, it's right at the top of my rebound. Because at the top of my rebound, very often people will go weightless for a moment. Makes it really easy to throw them, because you don't have to deal with their weight. So here, no, you're too early.
Okay.
But you have to stay connected with me too. That's a little better, still a little bit early.
Okay.
But keep connected, but don't actually discharge until I'm almost like back up vertical. A little bit, still early. And you disconnected from me.
Yeah.
That was better, a little bit better, still a little bit early. Still a little early. So you feel this difference. This is what's happening, what you're doing. You're going here, and this is okay. But then as soon as you start falling back, you're kind of chasing, and then earlier than the top of the peak of my rebound, you're pushing. As opposed to, what I want to do is I want to wait until that moment when you're like, you're really almost like suspended. Oh, that one sounded good.
I don't want to feel that too many times.
Well, here's where a person who is larger and has a lot of momentum, their momentum really comes into play in this type of push. And because there's just this transfer of momentum that takes place. You know, if someone's got a lot of it,
Right.
they can really throw you.
You have to wait.
Yeah.
Somebody else?
Oh, you want to put it on? What are you doing?
Yeah, you're rushing it, Jim. Stay connected with him through the rebound, but don't
That's
release
what it is
until
I
the
was saying
end.
when I keep going.
Yeah,
That's what you follow and then boom.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
let me just make a point for a second that I think is interesting. If I'll do the yang form because it's a little easier to see, because the wu form, the circles are so small, and then I'll push them with the wu style, which is kind of interesting to see because it's so small. But if I'm doing a push in yang style, the transition from press to push. The release is until here. There's a on typically done that breaks the person's legs and then releases. But here, I'm actually gathering his strength in, just like I'm doing, and then I'm releasing. The Wu style is a little bit more squirrely, for lack of a better word, because that motion is this. If I'm doing a yang style kind of push, I'm going here, I'm getting his strength or his balance, and then I'll follow through. So it's here. Very, very easy if you get the timing of it right. The Wu style is a little trickier because I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it in a very, very tiny compressed space.
Very small circle.
Very small circle. So go ahead and work on this a little bit more. The timing is so critical. Yeah, but also just don't have a sense of almost like he's not there.
It's not there, okay.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay.
Have you heard of the tsunami?
That was better. That was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rather than collapsing
Yeah,
my shoulders.
yeah, yeah. Although, I mean, again, it's like you're not running into his strength, but you're not running away from it either.
Yeah.
That was better, Richard. And he was asking about, yesterday when we were doing like the twisting of the tissue, well, how does that get involved when you're like doing a push like this? And what happens is if you really engage the twisting along with the bowing, what happens is the line of force becomes really difficult to read. Just kind of like what we were doing when we were doing different applications and stuff with like raising hands and stuff. It's much harder to have a sense of where the power is coming from because the power isn't coming out in a straight line. The power is coming out in twists and in spirals. And so, as a simple example of this, if I was like, push Jim, if I push in what I would say is a linear fashion through my body, I'd still have power, but it's pretty straight on. Okay, if I have a twist, it still has power, but it's much, much harder to feel where the direction of the power. And that's really one of the reasons for doing that. And we'll play around with this a little bit, and then we'll also do some applications with it.
So it's what you're talking about, the difference between doing this and this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not just here. It's actually through the whole body has a twist. If you look at it really carefully, it's down the left and right alignments of your body. Those are where the primary twists occur. Just as an interesting side to this, if you really get this alignment twisting well and you get this alignment twisting well, it actually creates 2 extra centers of rotation that you can move around. So you can switch basically your center of axis of motion from here to here or to here. And it makes it much, much harder to deal with somebody because you might think I've got them trapped on their center axis and they just switch their axis of rotation and their center over onto a side. But that aside, I want to have you go back and try to have a sense like, okay, we were working on getting his balance and discharge. What I want you to do for now, and it can go in either direction, but it's easiest to start out. As his strength comes in, rotate in, and as you discharge, rotate out. And try to do this through your legs. And again, this is where having that looseness in your sacrum and tailbone really comes into play because, yeah, like Richard, come here for a second. I want you to just feel my sacrum and stuff. If I'm just standing here and doing this, there's a lot of motion there. Well, having that motion of my pelvis opening allows the twist in my legs to really be well lined up. And so the power coming out of my legs, instead of coming out in a linear fashion, is going to come out in a twist. So if I come in, I'm going to do this slow for a second because I just want to try to illustrate it. But
So I should push in?
yeah. See how I've twisted in when I'm doing that? Okay. So go ahead and try that. Try going the other way, Jim, with your twist. I think it's actually easier if you twist. As his strength comes on you, you actually twist inwards and then come back out.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay? You can do it really either way, but I think it's a little bit easier to do it that way, just personally. People's pushes are actually starting to look quite a bit better.
They feel good. You actually really feel the connection.
Yeah. Really connect down into your legs. Don't think of it so much as something that's happening in your arms. It's really happening in your legs. If you feel like the tissue, the soft tissue in my legs, when I do this, it's very active in terms of the twisting through the legs into the ground.
Yeah, good.
This is good.
Okay. Okay. Let me show you what you're doing, and this is, because it's hard to describe it, but I can show you. You're tending to do this. You're pushing with your legs, and then your legs complete their push, and then you're pushing through with your upper body. You want them both happening simultaneously.
Because you guys were right, you guys were right. And you know you did.
I'm gonna have to go check my stucco in a little while.
Yeah.
Push back.
As you're releasing, Jen, you're actually compressing right through there. So, like, if you feel my back for a second. You don't want to do this. What's happening, you're bowing, and then when you're releasing, you're doing that. And so it's actually pinching a lot of the strength of your legs from getting all the way up into your arms. Yeah, the rocks are all teetering on the brink of falling off. If you look at the